Okay, this is going to be the first lesson in Unit 3 for pre-calc. Okay, we're going to talk about some polynomials. Okay, I want to talk about the correlation between, I want to talk about positive, negative. Okay, I want to talk about degree, terms, real zeros, and imaginary zeros. Okay? Now, positive, negative, we've sort of really talked about this already. All right? If you have a graph that's like this, where the arrows are like this or this, okay, that's going to be positive. Okay, we did that when we discussed end behaviors. Okay? If the graph arrows are like this or this, it's negative. All right? So that's nothing new there. All right? Now, all these things correlate, okay? All right, here's the idea. To figure out the degree is the terns, plus 1, okay? A little s there, terns plus 1, okay? When we talk about terns, it's in the graph where it turns, okay? Okay, let's talk about real zeros and imaginary zeros and how you figure that out, okay? When we have a graph, and let's say I'm gonna do some examples in a second. If the graph just slices through, okay, we'll get into when it turns through the end of this unit. We count these as a one real zero when it slashes through, okay? If it ever just quickly touches like this or like this, we count these as two zeros, okay? So here is the idea. The real plus the imaginary has to equal my degree, okay? So the imaginary, just like the word sounds, you're not going to be able to figure out the imaginary because you can't see them. The way you'll figure out the number is to figure out the real. So for example, let's say I had a degree of 7 and I figured out I had 5 real. Well, that means that I have 2 imaginary, okay? So that's how that works. These two have to add up to that number, okay? So for instance, let's say I had 4 terns, which would mean that I would have a degree of 5, and let's say I had 1 real 0, okay? Well, this plus this would have to get my degree, so that would have to be 4, okay? So now let's go through some actual examples, okay? So for these, we're going to find out, is it positive or negative? We're going to find the degree, okay, the terms, all right, the real, and the imaginary zeros, okay? All right, so when I see arrows here and here, this is going to be a positive, okay? Now let's count the terns. That would be the next thing I would count. It turns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 turns. So if I have 6 turns, okay, that means my degree, I have to add 1 to that number, will be 7, okay? Now let's figure out our real zeros. Okay, this slashes through 1, this slashes through 1, this slashes through 1. So if I total up all those times it slashes through the x-axis, that would be 3, okay? So the idea is the real plus the imaginary has got to get the degree. So that means I have to have 4 imaginary zeros, okay? Let's go over here. Let's talk about positive, negative, degree, okay, terns, okay, real, and imaginary, okay? All right, so this quickly touches, that would be 2. This quickly touches, that would be 2. Okay? All right. I jumped ahead, sorry. So the arrows are pointed up there. That would be a positive as well. Let's count the turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I have 5 turns. If I add 1, that's degree 6. Okay? So we've already counted the reals. I did that prematurely there. 2 and 2 would be 4. Okay? So this number plus this number's got to get the degree. So my imaginary has to be 2. Okay, let's go to this one. Positive, negative, degree, terns, real, imaginary. Okay, all right. Well, both are pointed down. That's going to be a negative polynomial. The terns, I got 1 term. So if I add 1, I get 2. Okay. Now, if you notice, does not cross the x-axis. So that would be 0. Okay, so 0 plus the imaginary has to give me the degree. So then that would have to be 2. Okay? All right. So I got positive, negative, okay, degree, turns, real, imaginary. Okay, you need the turns to figure out the degree. So how many times is a turn? 1, 2, 3 turns. Okay, this would also be, because they're both pointed down, this would also be a negative. Okay, all right, 3 turns, that means my degree is 4. All right, let's count. Slice 1, slice 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 real zeros. Okay, so 4 plus what would have to give me 4? That would be 0. Okay, so here's what I'd like you guys to do. I would like you to try these. Here's what we're going to find. We're going to find whether it's positive, negative, the degree, the turns, the real, and the imaginary. So go ahead and pause your video, okay? And then unpause when you're ready to begin, okay? So this one, because the arrows are pointed this way, this would be negative. Turns are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, add 1 to get the degree 7. Let's count these. Okay, this touches quick. That's 2. Slice 1, slice 1, slice 1. So 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay, so this plus this has got to give me the degree of there, so that would have to be 2. Okay, all right, positive, negative. This one, both arrows pointed up, would be positive. Degree, turns, real, imaginary. Okay, all right, it doesn't cross. I got 1, 2, 3 turns. If I add 1, I get the degree, that's 4. Okay, this goes, does not cross at all, that'd be 0. So 0 plus this has to give me 4. So this one would be 4 imaginary. Okay, positive, negative. These arrows are pointed this way, so this would be positive. Okay, degree, turns, okay, real, imaginary. Okay, let's count these. This would be turns 1, 2, 3, 4. Add 1 to get the degree would be 5. Let's count the zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. Okay, so 5 plus this would have to give me 5, so that'd be 0 imaginary. Okay, both of these are pointed down, so that would be a negative. Okay, degree, turns, real, imaginary. Okay, all right, so let's count the turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 turns, 1 more would be the degree. Let's count these. 1, 2, this touches, that counts for 2. So a total of 4. So 4 plus this would have to give me the degree. That would be 2 for that one. Okay? Now, let's talk about, next thing is this concept of zeros. These words of zeros, solutions, roots, x-intercepts, okay? They all mean the same thing. Okay, these are all the same thing. All right? They look something like this. Okay? Now, one thing that we're going to have to be able to do in this chapter is convert things to factors. Okay? All right? So the idea is a factor has the parentheses. So very simply, these are going to be opposite signs. Okay? So the idea is a factor is an x plus or an x minus. Okay? So if this is positive 3, this would be x minus 3 for the factor. That's how easy it is. Let me skip down to this one here. Okay? All right, so this would be x, the opposite of minus would be plus, that'd be x plus 7, okay? Now, for this one, okay, it has a 0, I can just have that as x, you could have that as x plus 0, you could have that as x minus 0, okay? Now, the fractions get a little tricky, okay? They're not overly hard, but the idea is, okay, this would be x, okay? But this would be positive, so now it'd be negative, okay? And normally I'd have like negative 2/3. Now, we don't usually write the fractions like that. So here's what you do to change this. You just move this 3 right up in front of x. So this would just be, as a factor, would be 3x minus 2. Okay? So then this one, okay, would be x plus, all right, that 4 would be here. The 5 would normally be there, but what we're going to do is we're going to move that up, and that's going to be 5x plus 4. Okay? Let me insert a page after current. Okay, so here are the zeros. Just take a second and write down what these would be as factors, okay? So just pause your video real quick, okay? I'd like you to write down what those would be as factors, okay? You go ahead and unpause, okay? So this would be x plus 8, okay? This would be x minus 10. This would just be x. This would be x plus 1. Normally the 2 would be down here, but we're going to move that 2 up. This would be x minus 9. Instead of the 7 being down here, we move that 7 up, okay? Now, I want to talk about, oops, we want to insert another page. Well, I thought I had another page in there, insert after current. Okay, now, the next thing we want to talk about is the concept of what they call multiplicity. Okay, now what multiplicity refers to is how, it refers to a couple things. It's the exponent of the factor, all right, and it's also how the graph slices through. Okay, let me explain. Or I probably shouldn't say slices, I should say goes. Okay, so if you had an x-axis, let's say this is the x-axis, all right? If the graph slices through, we've been counting that as 1. That's what we worked on earlier. We've been talking about if it quick touches and goes, we're going to count as 2. There's actually 2 more. If the graph, when it goes through, curves through. Okay, so I'll write this down. Curves through. We're going to count the curves through as 3. So a multiplicity of 3. Okay? Now, if it touches and stays touches, so it's a long touch. All right, long touch here. You're going to use 4. Okay, so it's a multiplicity of 4. All right, so slice, quick touch, curve through, long touch. Okay, 4. Okay. All right. Now, how do we apply that? Okay, we're going to write the function. Okay. So we're going to look at, here's how we're going to do that. We're going to look at the zeros. Okay, so this crosses at -5. Okay, so my zeros are -5, -1, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now as far as my function goes, what I want to do is I want to turn those into factors. All right, so what would -5 be as a factor? That would be x plus 5. Okay. What would -1 be as a factor? X plus 1. What would 3 be as a factor? X minus 3. Okay? All right, probably should leave a little bit more room for this. Hold on. X plus 1, X minus 3. Okay, now, after we do the zeros to the factors, that's the big thing, we're going to handle the multiplicity. All right, so I'm going to look at how does it slice through or pass through. As you can see, this curves through, okay? It curves through. So I would write a cubed here, okay? This quick touches. So see how it goes and touches? So I would write that as a 2. And this goes right through right now, so that's going to be a 1, okay? All right? And as you can see, if you add up the degrees, that's a 6-degree polynomial. Now, the last thing you've got to decide, is it positive or negative, okay? Since both things are pointing down, that would be negative, and I got to put that symbol in there, okay? All right, so let's go to this one. I got zeros at -4. I got a 0 at 2. I got a 0 at 5, and I got a 0 at 7, okay? So I have x plus 4, x minus 2, x minus 5, x minus 7. Okay? And I'm a little too far off the page here. Let me move that over. X plus 4, x minus 2, x minus 5, x minus 7. Okay? Now let's count this. This would be a 1 that slices through at 1. Okay? This one sort of like glides or long touches along there. That's going to be a 4. Okay? This one slices through it as a 1. This one slices through as a 1. Okay, that would be a degree 7 polynomial. This is considered positive, so I can just leave that as it is. Okay, and that would be my answer. Okay, all right. So what I would like you guys to do, pause your video and write the function. Okay, and go ahead and unpause. All right, so what I want to look at, I've got a 0 at -3, and I got a 0 at 4. Okay, so I got x plus 3, x minus 4. Okay, now this sort of glides along as it touches, so that is going to be a degree 4. This goes through real quick, that will be a degree 1. And since the arrows are this way, that would be a negative polynomial. Okay? All right, I've got a 0 at -2, I've got a 0 at 1, and I got a 0 at 4. Okay? So that'd be x plus 2, x minus 1, and x minus 4. Okay? Now this goes through real quick, slices through as 1. You can see this curves through, so that would be a 3. This quick touches there, all right? That would be a 2. Both arrows are that way, so it is positive. Okay? So that is a good first lesson for the polynomials unit. I just got to practice that stuff and you should be fine.